And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790, KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
Let me pull up the mailbag here at johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com. Pistol Pete writes in and says, Cecily Meyer Cruz just said teachers need to make more money. Didn't they just get a 30% raise the last time Cecily was screaming? At what point did the ceiling stop being raised when the education system is failing miserably?
Well, in theory, many of these schools should be shut down. If enrollment is declining and there aren't enough kids to fill the schools, then you don't need to operate as many schools as we used to.
That's what's going on right now in Oakland, and it is a disaster.
They never want to shut the schools down. They never want to lay anyone off or just stop replacing them when they retire. They want to just keep it going. And I guess from their point of view, just reduce the class size, but keep the same number of facilities operational.
And get a raise every 2 years.
We demand higher pay.
Seems to work out for them. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. As I mentioned before, we were expecting to speak with Hawaii Representative Ellie Cochran, who is the member of the Hawaii legislature who represents Maui. That was her district that burned down when Maui dealt with those horrible fires, and the fallout of trying to rebuild and people preying on them and those sorts of things is quite a story. She was booked on the show to talk about that, but apparently she's in a meeting that's going long and she's unable to make it today. So we're going to try to reschedule her because I've heard this woman speak before about just exactly what happened, and there's a lot to be learned. So we'll definitely try to get her back on the program.
I love when that's the excuse. Unlike that time where I was filling in for you, and we were supposed to have the district attorney of Sacramento County on, and he just happened to hear the first hour and said, I'm not doing that.
Can we blame him? All right. Well, as we mentioned last week, the breaking news from the Bay Area was that former Oakland Mayor Sheng has officially been indicted by the feds.
Apparently, she and the boyfriend were seeking as much as $300,000 in bribes from the Dong family.
And now everyone is starting to weigh in on just exactly what happened last week to Shengy. Randy, let's have more on that.
For reaction to the Sheng Tao indictment that has rocked Oakland, here's a report from KPIX.
This all comes 2 months after voters recalled Tao from office. The charges did not come as a big surprise for her political opponents and a former...
Was it a surprise for her supporters?
No one should be surprised at this news.
That FBI raid was 6 months ago.
And a former Tao staffer who became a whistleblower. Dahlin has that part of the story on the pay-to-play allegations since last year's FBI raids. He's live outside the Oakland Federal Building with more on reaction to today's indictment.
Juliet, many of Tao's opponents say they're not surprised and, of course, they feel vindicated. They've been sounding the alarm for a while now, but one of the first people to sound the alarm, to file the complaint and actually speak up is Tao's former chief of staff, Rania Webb.
Oh, I remember her.
Oh, yes. She was the one who was standing there when Shengy's boyfriend let her have it in front of all the staffers on Inauguration Day.
So the inauguration party, the boyfriend is going around to all the high-end donors asking what appointments to what commissions they want. She says, I'm not cool with this. Shengy says, don't you worry. You're going to get $200,000 to do your job. Just let Andre do his thing. And then Andre proceeded to bring out his ex in front of Sheng at her big party, and she got mad.
And then there was a whole lot of screaming going on.
Rania Webb risked her career to blow the whistle on her former boss.
I wouldn't sell out Oakland for any amount of money. I love Oakland. We deserve better.
When she alerted the city council in early 2023 about pay-to-play allegations involving Tao's boyfriend, Andre Jones, most city leaders ignored her. Some Tao supporters...
The FBI didn't.
No, they didn't.
Some Tao supporters even called her crazy.
Most of I got silence. You know, I sent out a bunch of emails.
Well, you got to remember, at the local level, Shengy's not an outlier here. This is how that game is played. And you guarantee Shengy and her boyfriend both interned for Rebecca Kaplan as a city council member for many, many years. This was business as usual in Oakland. So, of course, the locals are going to just scoff at you for it.
Go back to her defense. Sheng's defense was not, I believe in clean government. I would never do anything illegal or unethical. Her defense was essentially, this is how business is done. Now it's my turn. What's your problem?
You know, I sent out a bunch of emails. I made a bunch of calls. It was silence.
Webb worked for Tao in 2022 as the chief of staff when Tao was a council member. Webb also volunteered on Tao's mayoral campaign. She says when she found out about Jones' pay-to-play schemes, she told Tao about it.
She just told me to ignore Andre, make close to $200,000, and that we could set up our families for life.
I don't know if you can do that on $200,000.
Not even in Oakland.
What's a median home in Oakland?
But this very much goes to at least what I've been thinking about this whole thing, that the mastermind here is the boyfriend, and Shengy was just going along with whatever he said was the best plan.
Yeah, her defense will ultimately be that she's too dumb to know what was going on.
And Exhibit A and B and C is every single week we've had of this show for 2 years.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You think of them as podcasts. They think of them as evidence.
And that we could set up our families for life.
I am from Oakland.
She says she resigned on New Year's Eve 2022, not long after Tao won the mayoral race. She filed a complaint with the Public Ethics Commission. At the time, the commission was already investigating Andy Duong, reportedly using straw donors to give money to politicians, including
Bonta, how you sleeping tonight, buddy?
It seems like everything this guy did was illegal.
including Tao, to buy influence. Webb and federal prosecutors claim Duong paid for attack ads targeting Ignacio de la Fuente and Lauren Taylor. Taylor lost to Tao in the mayoral race by less than 700 votes.
Oh, that's got to sting.
Had 700 votes gone the other way, we wouldn't ever know about our dear Shengy.
Well, 700 votes in the final round of the ranked choice voting in Oakland, which went like 8 or 9 rounds.
And when you use ranked choice voting, what you end up with is some random person being elected. That's how you end up with someone like Sheng.
When we talk about a 677 vote margin, those flyers that were funded through this scheme.
I think the whole time last year, every time he turns on the TV, he'd look at the TV and think, that could have been me screaming about the Oakland Bees.
Oakland Bees!
Well, I mean, this really was a stolen election.
Clearly had a direct impact on the outcome of our election.
Taylor is once.
And then the Dongs, they made sure to not even pay the printer that was putting out the attack ads.
Rude.
I was going to use a verb there, and I decided not to because of the name of the person that we are alleging did the thing.
Yeah, don't go down that road.
I caught myself before I even said it. I want a medal.
Taylor is once again running for mayor in the special election.
I am incensed that democracy was stolen from Oaklanders. We installed a mayor who was underqualified and corrupt.
Well, there was that.
At this point, who disputes it?
But, John, she would have been the first Hmong.
You go back and you look at when she was first elected, that's all the news talked about.
She got a national profile. CBS News did a whole thing on the first Asian American mayor elected in Oakland. Not one person looked at if she was qualified or what her track record was.
No, it wasn't even that she was the first Asian American mayor, because Jean Quan was mayor some time ago. She was the first Hmong mayor, and they made a big national deal out of it,
Putting us on a downward spiral.
Those who work to recall Tao also feel a sense of vindication.
We all knew.
Oh, there's Seneca.
Oh, yeah.
We all knew. We all knew. We've been telling you for over a year that Sheng Tao is corrupt, dishonest, and incompetent.
About 60% of Oakland voters voted to recall Tao in November.
Oakland owes the recall effort an apology or a thank you, depending on which way you voted.
God, I love him.
Because now we know that we have saved Oakland a great deal of time, energy, and heartache. Imagine this happened today and she was still our mayor.
Webb doesn't hold any anger towards her former boss. She says it's time to look.
I think the chief of staff who knew Shengy pretty well, she thinks that Shengy was talked into this whole thing.
How would you like to go out to dinner with her, put a couple of cocktails in her, and let her just tell you stories about Sheng?
Oh, I would foot that bill.
Webb doesn't hold any anger towards her former boss. She says it's time to look forward and fix a broken city. That's why she's also running for mayor.
Of course she is. So far, we've got Lauren Taylor, the guy who ran against her and lost by just a few hundred votes, her former chief of staff, and we've got Barbara Lee speaks for me and 10 other gadflies.
I wonder if the only reason she turned Sheng in was to knock her out so she could take the job.
This is politics. This is how it works.
In the special election.
When she saw how few votes you needed to actually win in Oakland and she saw an opening, it was time to take her down and then say, I'm the clean one.
In the special election.
I'm running because I know Oakland has such a bright future ahead of us. And they deserve a leader that's going to stand up for what's right, that's going to serve the people.
Former Congresswoman Barbara Lee is also running for mayor in that April special election. Now, Lee actually urged voters to reject that recall back in November.
If there's any way that Barbara Lee loses, which isn't super likely because she's the most known entity out there, it will be that she told people don't recall Sheng.
How could you make that argument with a straight face? It's not like she was corrupt but doing a great job, so you're willing to put up with a certain amount of it. She was corrupt and doing a horrific job running that city directly into a mountain.
Today, Lee released a statement saying she is devastated by those allegations in the indictment. Juliet, Lee also said that Oakland is not for sale.
Yes, it is, and there's a price tag.
One family already bought a whole bunch of it.
Now, I wonder if the feds are looking at that deal for the Coliseum.
You have to be.
Remember how much that one stunk?
We're still waiting for a payment. There's still all of these questions about, okay, the Board of Supervisors had to authorize this side, and the entity that bought the half from the city of Oakland, somehow when they renegotiated the deal, they said, okay, we're not giving the city a dime until we make sure that we can actually buy the other half. And so that is why the city of Oakland is in a budget nightmare right now, why they had to close 2 fire stations and had to close all the police academies.
And she negotiated the deal in private without involving the city council.
I can get that.
Yeah, you can.
All right. That's the reaction to Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao being indicted by the feds.
Like, don't waste our time. We have a whole city to run.
Not anymore, baby.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Chuck writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, reacting to Cecily Myert Cruz asking for yet another raise.
Get that money!
I think a $90K plus salary for 183 open session school days a year is pretty darn good pay. Let's not forget 100% of that gross income is paid for by the taxpayer. I worked at Local 11 IBEW for 35 years. We never received anything higher than a 3% raise over 3 years, and some of that was taken up by increasing healthcare costs. These people are greedy pigs.
We demand higher pay.
And if you want to go back and listen to a podcast from the last time Cecily Myart Cruz wanted to raise Randy, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes, do a Google on the YouTube, or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts. You can listen to any of the podcasts that happen to be on these days of the week. You can listen to them in months that had 4 weeks or months that had
5 weeks.
And, of course, you can listen to them in the month of
May.
And, Randy, we're moving down the dial in the San Francisco Bay.
So we do a version of the Fix California Hour weeknights at 11 on KSFO. KSFO moved from AM 560 to AM 810, which is a bigger, stronger signal that you can hear crystal clear in the northern half of California. Goes out to Sacramento as well. But what's really cool is at night, when all the other radio stations go down, that station gets more powerful. You can hear it in Nevada. You can hear it in Utah. You can hear it in Arizona, maybe even New Mexico. You can hear it in Southern California as well. So why don't you set a preset for AM 810 next to 790? And then if you're driving around 11 o'clock at night or sometimes 6 o'clock, it changes, you can listen to the Fix California Hour.
Coming up next, yet another insurance company is pulling out of the California market. Well, we know that Allstate is pulled out of the state. We know that State Farm is pulled out of California. And, Randy, we could add another one to the list.
The Limu Emu. They don't want to do condo and rental insurance anymore because they paid for too many of those stupid commercials. Although, if you want to buy some here, we got some ad space. For more, here's KPIX.
Liberty Mutual, California's fourth largest insurer, plans to get out of the state's condo and rental insurance markets in 2026.
What does this say for confidence in Ricardo Lara's plans?
Wouldn't condos be about the safest thing you could insure? Because most of them are in the flats.
Filings show that this could impact close to 170,000 properties insured through the company's Liberty Mutual and Safeco brands. This decision was announced weeks before the Southern California wildfires put the state's insurance crisis into the spotlight. Max Darrow reports.
The garden in Brian Wallace's backyard is a little slice of peace within the busy cityscape. He owns a condo in Soma, a place about as far removed from wildfire danger as one can get. Yet, like
there's drug fires.
Oh, yeah. That meth seems to be really combustible.
But if they light the meth on fire, even if it's windy, there's no brush to burn in the Soma district.
No, just homeless encampments.
Yet, like so many Californians,
it cannot get any more serious than it is now.
Wallace has felt the grips of the insurance crisis.
We were with farmers for about 20 years or so, and then they dropped us, although we never had a claim, but they dropped us.
Of course, because what is customer service these days?
So wait, now he's been dropped by 2 companies?
I think we're about to hit a third.
That was last year. He says he was able to find another carrier, but then he was dropped again.
All of a sudden,
if he keeps getting dropped, he's going to have more marriages with insurance companies than Elizabeth Taylor had with men.
All of a sudden, you just think, okay, now what do I do?
He worked with insurance brokers in Northern and Southern California and finally was able to land another policy, though with a much higher premium.
Shocker.
You pay more and you get less.
And again, this is not for anywhere that's in a wildfire zone. It's a condo in San Francisco.
Almost $2,700 more expensive than what he used to pay. And even now,
the insurance.
It almost seems like a perfect scheme. You drop a whole bunch of policies, and then you charge the people that you have left double what you were paying for. Now you have half the risk.
Sure, you get a break if you're a longtime customer and have everything bundled. But if you just come in off the street and you're only buying it for your house because you already have policies on everything else, then you pay through the nose.
And even now,
the insurance company we have now, perfectly fine, but we have no idea come June 1st of 2025 whether or not they're going to not renew us.
The paradigm has changed, leaving people like Wallace hanging in the balance.
Action has to be taken, and it has to be taken soon.
Not with the current jackass in charge or the jackass that said he's got it.
They're just biding their time until they're termed out.
Some of the largest insurers have stopped writing new policies or pulled out of the state entirely. The latest to join the list, Liberty Mutual and its subsidiary Safeco, announcing they plan to exit the condo and rental insurance markets in 2026.
So it's not just about wildfires, is it?
So wait, so if I'm understanding him correctly, they're not doing what State Farm did. With State Farm, if you have an existing policy, like me, they'll let you keep your policy. They just won't write new ones. It sounds like Liberty is just pulling out altogether. So if you buy your policy through them, you're going to be on the open market trying to find a company that will insure you.
However, they do plan to continue offering insurance for homeowners.
I would call it a disappointment.
Jerry Becerra is an insurance broker with over 40 years of experience.
It's the worst market that we've had in my entire career. The LA fires are going to definitely have an impact.
It's already the worst market ever, and it's about to get way worse.
Again, and this is a unit that has virtually zero risk at burning down.
I think it's too soon for us to know what that impact is going to be.
At the end of 2024, the state's insurance commissioner announced the final step of his so-called sustainable insurance strategy.
And wasn't that supposed to stop all these headlines of insurance companies dropping everybody and planning to pull out because you gave them everything they wanted on a literal wish list?
Doesn't seem to be working, does it?
Aimed at expanding coverage and bringing insurance companies back to California. Insurance companies will have to write more policies in high-risk areas, but they will be allowed to pass some of the costs of reinsurance on to customers.
And they only have to write 5% more policies than they do in those wildfire zone areas.
And keep in mind, they're still leaving the market.
In order to make the standard market come back and get insurance carriers interested in writing business in the state and being competitive, the pricing needs to go up. That's better than throwing everybody into the surplus lines market where prices are 2 and 3 and 4 times what they were paying before.
Yeah, but now the prices for all policies are going to go up 2, 3, 4 times.
Yeah, and what happens is you end up on the fair plan if no one will offer you a policy. It's almost better to have more options that are expensive than to have no options or to be dumped on the fair plan. Because a lot of people don't own their homes outright, and part of the deal with their mortgage company is that they have to be insured. Well, if you have to be insured and you have no options, you got yourself a problem.
Because I know I have to spread the risk. I understand how insurance works.
Wallace says change is needed, and it is needed now.
I don't know if there can be like a special session or something like that.
No, they only do that for fake things.
Yeah.
When
Not for actual issues that matter to Californians.
No. Gavin had 2 years in a row of a special session because Big Oil was screwing you. They had this nonsensical special session to give Bonta a bunch of money to sue the Trump administration. But where has a special session been, or even this addressed in a regular session about this in crisis that has only been getting worse for years?
They don't know what to do, and it just makes them look bad.
Special session or something like that. Have everybody, either the assembly and the state legislatures, get together and, sit down and let's get something done.
That's not how this state works, buddy.
No, hasn't for a while.
Because from his vantage point, the status quo is not sustainable.
Liberty sent us a statement saying that it's focusing on a sustainable business path, that long-term success can come from focusing its attention on Safeco auto, home, landlord, and umbrella products.
How about before you cancel a whole bunch of condo policies in places that have no risk of burning down, you fire the emu?
Here is something that voters need to keep in mind. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here, so take that for what it's worth. When we get to choose a new governor in 2026, part of your criteria at evaluating the candidate should be, what are they going to do to solve the insurance crisis? If they don't have any ideas that they plan on taking with them into that office on how to make sure that people can buy policies, then you need to move on. Part of the reason that we have the awful government that we have in this state is we evaluate them on the wrong criteria. Well, I hate Donald Trump, and they have to hate Donald Trump just as much as me if they're going to earn my vote. Well, okay, fine. don't get angry when your home burns down because they don't know anything about preventing fires. I'm going to vote for governor based on their position on abortion. Okay, fine. Don't get mad when you can't buy insurance. If that's how you're choosing them, and those are the qualities that you deem to be important, then don't be surprised when they can't do the basics and when the state doesn't function. We have a lot of people running for governor in 2026. In theory, there will be many forums where people have an opportunity to have their concerns addressed. This should be at the top of the list. Whether it is remains to be seen. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Jeremy writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com on the subject of fixing California. Although this would never happen if voters did two things California could change virtually overnight. One, vote no on all bonds, tax increases, and any other scheme to take away more money than the state already gets. And two, vote Republican for all partisan offices. We've been doing this behind the orange curtain for years.
California, as a one-party state, does not function. If you were here in the 80s, if you were here in the 90s, if you were here before all of that, when California was a purple or a red state, things actually used to work. The trains would run on time. And then when we became a one-party blue state, everything just went to hell. All of our problems are man-made. And the good thing about man-made problems is if it's created by man, it can be fixed by man. We can fix all this. We just have to choose to. It's the John Phillips Show on Talk Radio 790 KABC.